Tonight, Joe Biden is going to speak, or at least he's supposed to speak, and then we'll all watch with bated breath to see whether he actually makes it through his speech. He's going to propose another $2 trillion package. So just to get this straight, since his election, he's proposed a $4 trillion budget, $2 trillion in blowout COVID spending that we didn't need, $2 trillion in infrastructure spending that has nothing to do with infrastructure, and now $2 trillion to expand education and safety net programs. So by my count, this is about $10 trillion that he has proposed in spending in his first 3 months on the job. That's crazy towns. Okay, that's nuts. We already have a record national debt. I know some people on the right didn't care about the national debt when Trump was president. I did. I talked about it. I talked about how we were spending too much money and how it was deeply irresponsible. Try taking that and then multiplying it by a factor of like 2.5, and you get to exactly where Joe Biden is today. Donald Trump was blowing out the budget at the tune of about $4 trillion a year. Joe Biden is suggesting blowing out the budget at the tune of $10 trillion. Okay, for people on the left to say, well, Republicans have no credibility here. Republicans overspend, but there is a difference between overspending to the tune of $4 trillion and overspending to the tune of, $10 trillion. The superheating of the American dollar, the dollar is going to explode. Okay, the dollar is going to decrease in value in extraordinary ways over the coming years. Meanwhile, Joe Biden is making it impossible for, if you have any money, to invest it anywhere. There are going to be real impacts to the stuff that he's talking about. But Joe Biden is going for broke. And the reason he's going for broke is basically he's a one-term president. He wants to make his mark before he leaves. That's all this is. That's the only reason I can explain what he's doing. Because, again, he gained office on the promise that he was going to be a moderate who worked with the other side and who took a slow, incremental approach to government and restored normalcy. And here he is proposing $2 trillion of spending essentially every 3 weeks of his presidency, which is nuts. According to the Washington Post, the White House on Wednesday unveiled a $1.8 trillion spending and tax plan aimed at dramatically expanding access to education and safety net programs for families. The package cannot be implemented without congressional approval. Many Republicans have offered a cool reception to the scope of tax increases and the spending that Biden has tried to advance. But the White House's new American Families Plan provides Congress with details of the president's domestic agenda, setting down markers for negotiations later this year. Now, spare me the notion that Democrats are deeply concerned about helping American families. This is the same group of people who have routinely downplayed the importance of the nuclear family in American life and have attempted to destroy all of the institutions that help out families in the social sphere, particularly with regard to religious communities and churches. This idea that they're out there to defend American families, no, what they're really out there to do is make the government father again, right? Just as it was in the 1960s, to the great detriment of so many actual families around the United States. Biden's plan, according to the Washington Post, proposes a suite of domestic policies that would collectively represent a marked change in how Americans interact with the federal government. The White House says its proposal would provide every American with 2 years of tuition-free community college. Question, what does that have to do with families? Why is it important that you have 2 years of tuition-free community college? One of the good things about not funding free community college is that you are not paying people to go to a crappy junior arts college and get a degree in nothing. It turns out that if you want to get a degree in science, in a STEM field, there are plenty of banks willing to offer you a student loan. You know why? Because you'll probably repay it. The thing about education loans is there's no collateral. Okay, so when banks don't want to give you a loan for your education, maybe the reason is because you are getting a degree in a useless subject. Okay, but now we're all supposed to fund your journey of self-discovery in college. You ever notice how the language surrounding what college was supposed to be changed? Right? College used to be, okay, we're going to train you for a job. You'll learn something about citizenship. You'll learn sort of the things that everybody must know. Now it's like you go to college to find yourself and have the college experience. I don't want to pay for your summer camp. I'm not interested. I went to college not all that long ago, and I can tell you, there are people there who are serious about learning. They're what we used to call at UCLA South Campus majors, the STEM fields. And then there are the people who are there to party and get decent grades and then move on to law school, or just get a degree, have the credential, and then move on into the job force and party, and mostly party, and also party. This is why there's such focus on you have to have the college experience, the college life. We all know what that's code for. Okay, so now Joe Biden wants you to pay for it. Pre-kindergarten for all 3 and 4-year-olds, which makes perfect sense except for the fact that Head Start has been one of the largest failures in American governmental history. If you look at the record of Head Start, it has provided virtually no benefit to the kids who have been a part of Head Start. Also, as people like Elizabeth Warren used to suggest, right? She wrote a book called The Two-Income Trap back when she was actually an interesting politician in the early 2000s. Elizabeth Warren suggested that perhaps funding things like universal childcare or early education actually drove families to put both members of the parental crew in the workforce, artificially driving up housing prices, artificially creating shortages in the labor force. and creating unemployment. And by the way, giving kids a worse quality of life in many cases, because it turns out that kids generally do better with mom or dad at home than they do in a random daycare facility. Again, this is not a referendum on whether women should work. I don't care. When I was at home, when I was a kid, my dad was at home with us and my mom worked. Right now, my wife is a doctor. Right? I'm all in favor of women who want to work working. But the notion that you have to incentivize a family for both parents to work, that has to be the incentive for both families to work, and we're going to make we're going to essentially make it harder for women to stay home and fathers to work, or the opposite, is not actually good public policy. Paid family and medical leave for American workers, which again, this is basically designed to alleviate the consequences of personal choice. Right? The idea is that no one should lose benefit in their career trajectory for taking time out of the American workforce. Question, why? Why? It's a choice. We all have choices. Those choices come with consequences. The great lie of modern society is that you can have everything you want and that somebody else will pay for it. That ain't the way real life works. Okay, but that is Joe Biden's proposal. The plan also calls for devoting hundreds of billions of dollars to fighting child poverty and ensuring affordable childcare nationwide, again, to try and ram people into the workforce. Also, the idea of devoting hundreds of billions to fighting child poverty, what they mean by that is signing checks to parents. That has never been an effective way of fighting child poverty. The left believes the way you fight poverty in the long run is just you sign people checks. That is not effective. We have spent $22 trillion in the war on poverty. Precisely the same percentage of Americans are living under the poverty line now as we're living under the poverty line when we started the war on poverty. The way that you actually get out of poverty is you incentivize good choices. You incentivize things like waiting to have babies until you are financially stable and getting married and getting a job, right? These are the ways you actually get kids out of poverty, not by signing checks. If signing checks just got kids out of poverty, fewer kids would be in poverty today. That's for damn sure, since we've been signing checks at record rates for decades in the United States. To pay for all of this, White House officials are proposing $1.5 trillion in tax hikes. Oh, yeah, that won't have any downside. Also, they're going to spend $80 billion on the IRS, toss $80 billion at the worst agency in American life. And they're going to double the capital gains tax for people earning more than $1 million a year, which makes perfect sense. We're going to destroy the value of the dollar and then give people no place to put their money. Brilliant. Well, Bitcoin to the moon, gang. I hope you enjoyed that clip from The Ben Shapiro Show. If you did, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you stay up to date with all our future content.